Calling our work session Thursday, April 2nd, 4 o'clock to order. Looking around, I see that we have a quorum, and do I have somebody like to move to adopt the agenda for today? All in favor? Aye. Okay, Michael, I guess you're up next.
Yeah. City Council, what's going on? Nothing.
Hey, you're all sleeping.
I think the coolest thing that we did recently was put $3.5 million towards the Adams Streetscape project. And I think a lot of people around town. Oh. Hello? Hello? Is that better? Can you hear me better? All right.
Yeah.
I think the coolest thing is $3.5 million Adams Streetscape. I think that the general public kind of doesn't know a whole lot about it and how much it's actually going to help spur development along that corridor down the road. I know that there are some landowners in that area that are been waiting for this for a long time, so they didn't have to pay for this sidewalks and parking spaces and things like that. And that's why we do things like that. The downtown's going to get one block bigger. So we're going to have Hood, obviously Cascade, Main, and now Adams to the north. And I think it's going to be really cool. I think that the overlay that we have already on there is going to have lots of different things. I think it's going to be a varied district. It's not going to just be a bunch of B&Bs. It's not going to be just retail. I think it's going to have a good mix of a lot of different things. And some people may just still choose to live there. The only thing is they're probably going to have alley access because there's not going to be a lot of driveways coming off Adams anymore. So that's part of the plan. But I'm looking forward to it. I know that it's been on my radar for city council. I'm in my 8th year, so probably 6 or 7 of those years. It was, it was part of the URA job list for a long time. I know we're 1 or 2 city managers back to when that idea came to fruition, at least, and I'm sure the idea was probably kicked around by Paul years and years and years ago. So I'm glad that one's happening.
It is a mix of zoning, right, in there?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff you can do in there, so it's really kind of cool. But yeah, there's a lot of mixed use you can do. And yeah. Obviously, we have some affordable housing going in there, and so you'll see that those curbs are already in there and sidewalks, and there's a lot of utilities that were put in for that thing to get going, so it didn't interfere with the improvements we were making on the street. So it was all thought of ahead of time. Obviously, we have UGB stuff coming up. We're going through the process of annexation rules right now. We've had 2 or 3 workshops on that, and there's design standards that we have to do. There's annexation. There's the area planning. There's still a lot of work to be done over this next year. And the hard part is right now we're in the planning and budgeting process. We did our goal setting stuff, and I think that's coming up pretty soon. And the budget's next, and then we need to start working on this stuff. And obviously what you guys are doing today, the code refinement and fixing all that has to be done too. I talked to somebody today about some tougher neighborhood fire defensible space standards at the subdivision level, and it sounds like some good conversations that might need to be had before we actually expand the UGB to have some of that in place as well. So there's a lot of work to do, and I'm glad you guys are on board, and thank you for being here. 6 out of 7 is not bad. So, and then, Daryl. We all know Daryl. So, do you have any questions for me?
I don't think so.
I just had a quick question. Did you get any bids yet for actually doing the Adams Street?
Yeah, the bids were put out last month and came in a couple weeks ago, and the 3.5 was the lowest, and I think we got 10. Did we get 10 bids? I think it was a lot. Six or 10. I think it was 10. But that's a lot. A lot of people want to do the work, and the people who got it were the lowest. Obviously, that's how we run. So, and it came in under budget. So, good stuff. I'm surprised they're not out there digging today, to be honest with you. It's nice out there. So,
Sort of,
a little cold, but
yeah.
you know, when you're running a piece of equipment, it's not so bad. Anyway, here you go. Thank you.
Okay. Visitor communication. This is the time provided for individuals wishing to address the Planning Commission regarding issues not already on the agenda. No. Saving it up.
You're only here for all the spelling errors.
Greg, online, do you have anything that you'd like to speak about? Not getting a response. Okay. No approval of minutes. And on to the workshop. Who's going to speak to?
I'm just going to quickly turn it over to Sarah here to do a workshop. On occasion, I'm not sure if all of you guys have had the opportunity to do some housekeeping amendments, but these are things that, see you, Michael. These are things that that bubble up, that we note over the course of the year that, you know, don't really rise to the level by themselves of changes. But we keep a list, a running list, and usually once a year or once every couple of years, bring them through for your approval. Also thought it would be a good warm-up to public hearings that we will be having with a little bit more weight coming up here soon. So it's a good low stakes, dry run at a public hearing since it's been a while. But Sarah's been working hard on this, and I will turn it over to her. And again, this is just a workshop. We're free to discuss it. Get your thoughts if you have any at this point. And then we'll bring it back for a public hearing on the 16th.
I noticed there were a number of grammar and spelling corrections. Takes me back to English class at school.
This one's so short. Yeah, if you don't mind. See if it doesn't.
Okay, so we have for you a lovely discussion. I do have a presentation, but please interrupt me, ask questions. It works better, it feels better if it's just a conversation. So interrupt me at any point. As Scott said, these are housekeeping amendments, and the intent here is to discuss them, prepare for a public hearing, and ask any questions that you may have about what you've seen. Our timeline is that we're at the Planning Commission workshop, so we're at the very beginning. Our next journey will be a public hearing on the 16th, which is in 2 weeks. And then there, if Planning Commission is comfortable with recommending that these move forward to City Council, those are the two tentative dates that we have to bring these in front of City Council. So a workshop on May 27th and then a public hearing on the 10th for hopeful adoption. I'm going to talk a little bit about what housekeeping amendments are and what they aren't. But before I do that, and I'm sure you guys are all familiar with code changes, my formatting is that when you look at these, if I crossed it out and it's red, it means I want to remove it. And if I underlined it and it was red, I want to add it. So as you're looking at all of those. Housekeeping amendments do not create or modify or remove standards. So for example, we're not going to modify the standard that allows Christmas tree sales to now happen after Thanksgiving, to now happen after Halloween instead of Thanksgiving. So that would be a modification of a standard, so that's not something we're doing. We are not trying to change the intent of the code, so we wouldn't change the dark skies standards to be irresponsible lighting practices instead of responsible lighting practices. But we do want to do spelling and grammatical error updates. We want to update code references that are out of date, and we want to correct outline issues. I've kind of sorted them into some themes. So grammar and spelling, outline and reference updates, and then code structure, and I would also say code clarity. Of those themes, 64% are outline changes, and I'm sure you guys saw that. So 64% of what we're talking about is outline changes, 15% is code clarity, 13% spelling and grammar, and then 8% trying to restructure the code. I'm not going to go through all of them, although I'm sure that would be super fun. But I did cherry pick a few things that I want to go over in each theme for you. So in spelling and grammar, really only one spelling error. We have misspelled amphitheater, so we're going to correct that. We have an RE instead of an ER. And then down below, tasting rooms and food service, that's a plural sentence, and right now it's written singularly, so we want to update that and fix that. I thought so too. Yeah. We don't want to be cool anymore. Oh, interesting. Here's the riveting 64% or outline updates. So for example, in Exhibit B, Pine Meadow Village, the sub-district has an A, a B, and then another B. So the second B needs to be a C. And then down in special provisions in Exhibit J, those are capital letters. They should be lowercase. There's a lot of that, and there's a lot of the Roman numeral changes from numbers. So sometimes we show numbers and they should be Roman numerals. So that's the bulk of this, honestly. Every few years. Just to make it easier for us, and as Matt so eloquently put earlier, no one's going to care about the outline changes except for us and probably lawyers, because when you start citing the code, it can get confusing if it's incorrect. So. Next up, category, reference updates. So this one, for example, in Exhibit M lists a building official as the enforcement authority for signs that are like hazardous. The City of Sisters doesn't have a building official on staff. We contract that service out to Deschutes County. So we want to update that terminology to our community development director. Because his description also includes any designees, that would still include the building official, but it can also include people like our code enforcement officer. Another reference update for you, ADU building codes. We were incorrectly referencing the Oregon Structural Specialty Code, which is for commercial construction. So we worked with the building official for Deschutes County to come up with this phrasing, and this sentence should cover us now when it's the Oregon Residential Specialty Code, but if it ever changes again, we won't have to go back through and update this code again because we're not listing a specific building code. And then in Exhibit L, we have, instead of a decision authority, which isn't a term that we use throughout the code, but we do use review authority, so we just want to update that. Any questions so far? I really do.
I do.
And the sad part is I love code updates. I don't drink any, no. It's riveting.
Yeah. Sarah, I wanted to ask,
Yeah,
the reference to the all applicable state building codes,
yes.
is there a spot in the code that kind of points the user towards where they can find those applicable codes, or is it it's on their responsibility to identify what are applicable?
It's a good question. That would be on them to go
On
find
them,
the
okay.
applicable codes, which hopefully they know.
Yeah.
On code structure theming, so in our landscaping and screening, we have a lot of provisions that pertain to parking areas, but they're kind of scattered throughout, and we wanted to combine them. So we're going to put them under the header of parking areas, and then we're going to move 9 down below to be A, and then the paragraph that's sitting after parking areas would then become B. So just restructuring it, trying to make it easier to use for everyone. That way they don't have to read the whole thing and find everything that pertains to parking areas and then be surprised by something they missed. Another code structure, this one happened in a few zoning districts. There are, you guys know the use tables that are pages long and they talk about everything that you can do in a zoning district. Right now, formula food establishments sit underneath that table, so they often get lost for people who are looking for uses. They'll be like, great, I can do an eating and drinking establishment, and then they don't see E because it's all the way down underneath everything. So we just want to move it to the top so it's at everyone's attention. We still doing good? Okay. Code clarity, another one we would like to add is development is subject to applicable landscaping standards. All development in the city of Sisters is held to landscaping standards, but right now, if you're in those zoning districts looking at, you know, how you have to design your building and where you should go to find the parking, we don't have any reference to landscaping right now, and it kind of gets missed a lot when it gets turned in, so we just want to add this sentence to say, hey, please go look at landscaping still. This one I do want to spend some time, if you guys will indulge me. So we have home occupations, and they are things like a hairstylist working out of a home. We had like a pet groomer once. We had a lady who wanted to do a stretching class. So they're bringing people to the site as customers. They might have a sign. They might get some deliveries. They might ship something out. There's impact to their neighborhood around them. But kind of as a subcategory of that, we have home-based businesses that don't have any of that intensity level or impact. They don't bring anyone to the site. There's no sign. It's like your day traders, or, you know, you've got data entry, or someone who's doing customer service is just on the phone all the day. If you're walking by their house, you're not even going to know they're there and operating. And right now, it's difficult to explain without an exemption to them that they don't need the type 1 review because they don't have that impact or intensity. So we're getting people that are applying for home ocs that don't necessarily need them. So if we could add this exemption for clarity for everyone, we think it'll be easier and go smoother. Oh yeah, you're a great example. Do you have any customers or clients that visit you on site? Okay, and yeah, very infrequently. So if we found someone who was operating like as a home-based business that was exempt, and all of a sudden they have customers coming to the site or they're getting a bunch of deliveries, that's totally fine. You would just need to go through a type 1 review. That way we can look at the criteria with more scrutiny to see how you're impacting your neighborhood. Is there any questions about home occupations? I feel like this is one of the more exciting ones.
I do.
Okay.
How does that apply to in-home caregivers? Like, it's the resident who owns the home and someone is coming to their house on like a full-time basis to
Okay.
provide care for them.
Like hospice
Kinda like
situation?
hospice,
Okay.
How does that work?
Question. I
It's
imagine
not really a business, it's like a personal
it's like a service. Yeah, and the entity that's providing the service would have a business license through the city of Sisters. But I wouldn't clarify it as a home occupation.
Okay.
Scott? Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I can drop this down too, and we can look at home occupation criteria.
Right. Because there are people who are coming to the home potentially,
Right.
and you talked about like impact to the neighborhood, right? So there may be more deliveries or people coming to and from, but it's not technically, yeah, it feels more like a personal service, so. Potentially, yeah. Yeah. Income producing. Okay. That makes sense then. Yeah, it does not count. No, that's fair. That makes sense, yeah, because it's not income producing. Thank you for clarifying.
Thanks for asking. I pulled up the home occupation standards, so I'm going to switch my screen back. my next riveting topic, or at least I think, would be adding, yeah, I do, would be adding an illustrative depiction of the area in which you cannot operate a temporary use. So it's within 126 feet of Cascade, and then there's some boundaries there, so Pine and Locust, the subject of a semi-recent appeal, and it was recommended that we add some sort of graphic to help display the areas where you can't operate a temporary use. You would still have to ground truth it. You would still need to verify that you're not within 126 feet, but I feel like this is an easier discussion if someone were to come to the counter and we can just show them this and try and get them off on the right foot from the start, instead of go measure it and come back to me. Thoughts? No? I love pictures. Thank you. Surprisingly difficult. I learned something.
I don't know if they're on there, but if there are street labels on the graphic
Oh, okay.
to orient, that would also be helpful.
There are, but I may have covered them up with my graphics, so I will go back and make sure that they're visible.
I can't really tell from here, but. Yeah, that's true.
I can't read it either, but I know they're there just because I stare at this map all day long. Okay, and you may have seen in your lovely staff report agenda packet that we were contemplating adding setbacks to the Pine Meadow Village subdistrict. These setback standards are in the original decision, so they're in place and they're being observed, but they're not codified in the development code, which is sometimes confusing for people who are developing that area. They're like, well, my front porch can be 12 to 16, but your code doesn't say it, but the decision does say it. So we do abide by it. We wanted to add it, but we can't meet the regulatory timeline in order to get this one done. So it's being pulled from the package, and it might come forward in a different one. Next steps. Hopefully a public hearing in 2 weeks, and then hopefully on to city council. I'm planning for it. That's right. I'll get those added.
I think I found a typo in one of them. It was the
Thank you.
carport one,
Okay.
and there was a list, and it was like all the following things need to be followed. But that was like point A, and then it was like B, C, D. So I think the part that had the colon after it doesn't need to be a bullet point. So I was like, carports. Remember that.
Yeah, if you have anything that you've seen that needs to be fixed, please send it to me. And if you don't have questions now, but you go home and you're reading this to fall asleep, and you come up with something, please email, call. Happy to meet with you one-on-one, or phone call or email if anything comes up.
I'm with you. I think this is interesting.
Thank you.
But I just wanted to get more background on the process. Was it multiple people on the staff who were doing this review? I think at one point you talked about getting a
Yeah.
grant, Scott, to do a review, like an audit of the code with the state requirements as well, or something like that. Can you
Yeah, this is
clarify?
a little different. These are more
Different,
things,
okay.
things that we've observed or potentially and has made us aware of, or, these are not the source of the code audit, or these things haven't been identified by the code audit. We haven't started that process yet.
Okay.
So,
That is a process that will be for.
same process in terms of how we get them approved. Have to work them through the planning commission and the council. But those will be substantive and probably require more workshops than these do. So.
Sure. I mean, proofread the entire code is a lot. Is a lot. Yeah. That's a whole other job. Not in one go.
This feels like it'll be a stupid question, but what is formula food establishments a term of art that somehow has escaped me my whole life? Is that specifically just restaurants? Or is
Yeah.
that-
It was new to me too when I started here.
Yeah.
But it does have a specific definition in our code. Would you like to hear it?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. I was thinking the exact same thing. I'm like, that's a weird, specific zoning requirement.
Baby drive up.
Okay, you ready?
Heck yeah.
So a formula food establishment is an eating or drinking establishment that A, is required by contractual or other arrangements to offer standardized menus, ingredients, food preparation, employee uniforms, interior decor, signage or exterior design, or B, adopts a name, appearance, or food presentation format that causes it to be substantially identical to 13 or more other establishments, regardless of ownership or location. So it's,
Like your McDonald's, your Arby's,
yeah, it was a way to kind of,
So if they're 12, you're okay.
so you get your
If you're
entrepreneur.
12, you're okay.
Okay, cool.
eating and drinking establishments. So, I mean, I think the intent when it was first done was probably the McDonald's and the Burger Kings. But interestingly enough, Country Coffee, the little stand, we've determined that there are how many, Matt? At least 12.
Growing business and company, so
Yeah.
they've emerged and exceeded since in the last year or so that 13 establishment threshold. So now they are one of these formula foods.
Yeah,
Is it Dutch Brothers?
Dutch Brothers too.
it is.
Yeah, Dutch Brothers.
I couldn't tell you. I don't think any of us were involved with that process, so I'm not sure where that number came from.
Something.
Yeah, but it's interesting that it's kind of catching in its net places like Country Coffee, which I don't think were the boogeyman for the formula food ordinance in the first place. So,
There was another restaurant from Bend that I know that wanted to come in that couldn't because they had too many outlets. They're not a national.
I think we took a close look at the pizza place, and I think at the time, Sabelli's at the time, it was still underneath that threshold, and that may have changed as well by now, given that it's a growing company too.
Well, and an additional detail in the code, these are applicable to our commercial districts, the highway commercial and downtown commercial districts. Highway commercial, that's out kind of west part of town, allows up to 6 formula food establishments. There's only 1 allowed in the downtown commercial district. So currently that's Dutch Brothers.
They haven't had an easy time either. That way, some of them closed. Probably pretty hard to get people to work. Us here.
6, correct.
Anything else? Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We have some riveting announcements now.
We'll try to fill in some gap here. So, Councilor Breeden talked about the UGB stuff a little bit. Just want to give you a little bit more, give you a little bit more information on that. We did make the submittal to the county back in February, and we're working, it's working its way through their process, and that's for adoption of the UGB. You'll recall that both the county and the city have to amend their comprehensive plans to adopt a UGB. And so we're trying to align the hearing schedules for that project so that they're roughly the same timing. And we're on a tentative time track to have this be reviewed by the Planning Commission, you guys, at a public hearing on May 21st. And then just prior to that, on May 7th, the plan is to do a workshop on it with you guys before that. And that has now become a joint meeting with the council. Likely be a 2-hour meeting on May 7th where we'll talk about the UGB. We'll also be talking about annexation policy. Initially, we thought that this was just going to be a municipal code amendment. And municipal code amendments don't involve the Planning Commission, but it's looking more that it's going to be housed in the development code. So you guys will be involved with that review. So we're thinking that that meeting would be a good opportunity to talk about both those items. And then allow additional time, because I know in the past that you guys have not had the sufficient time just to have more of a free-form discussion with council where you can bring up any item you want to. So that's the plan for that. And then if it sounds like the county hearing would be scheduled for around May 28th. And then we don't know exactly the council and the county commissioner date for adoption, but it could be as early as the end of June or in July. So, no, that would be the county planning commission would be May 28th. And then after that, if it gets recommended by both those bodies, it would go to we have a joint hearing with where the county commissioners will probably come into this room and they'll sit down here with the council members, and they'll have a joint meeting where hopefully the county will adopt it right before the council adopts it in the same meeting.
Going on further with the appeal process, either direction?
No, the initial appeal that was submitted for the resolution that the council adopted, or not adopted, but approved, recommending that the staff go forward with the submittal of the application, initially was appealed. The council went ahead and rescinded that resolution because it wasn't a necessary step to get us to submit the application. And after that, the appellants did not appeal it again. So the answer to that question is no appeals right now.
What about their appeal or?
It's still working its way through the process. My understanding is that they'll have a hearing in June on it, and potentially a decision issued in early July. And I think you're referring to the appeal of the rezone of the Mackenzie Meadows Village?
Yes.
Yeah. That's the latest I've heard, is that
Going to Luba. I think.
it's going to Luba, yeah, and that there will be some potential decision in July issued on that. As with any application, any land use decision, there would be the opportunity for someone to appeal the UGB approval as well. So we'll see if that happens, but that's an option. So I talked about the annexation. The Planning Commission will be involved in that. I've had a couple workshops with the council so far to kind of get their direction on what they want to do with it. They've talked about affordable housing requirements being a major component of that. And so the next workshop that we have scheduled with them is on April 15th. And it's going to be just on annexation. It's a 2-hour workshop. It's at 1 o'clock. I think it's 1 to 3 on the 15th if you're interested. So I'll start to bring you guys into discussion and kind of give you the same background that I gave the council, so that you'll be tracking with that discussion concurrent with the council. So we'll have some more interesting things for you, some meaty things for you guys coming up. This is just the appetizer. Right? Yeah. Also in motion behind the scenes more is the area planning process. That is the next step, and kind of usually occurs after the UGB's been adopted. But we're starting to think about that process and how it's going to work and the timing of that. We plan to, we're thinking that it will be a process that will start to kick off in probably July, August. We're talking about having maybe a design charrette as part of that process. don't know if you guys have ever heard of that. Your architect has, but it's kind of an intensive 2-day process where you get a lot of the stakeholders in the room, and you get some designers, and they start throwing out concepts and drawing things up on the wall. And it's a great way to kind of identify concepts and issues really quickly and kind of come to sort of a concept plan. And then what happens typically in the evening of those charrettes is that you have a public open house and get the public to offer their comments, and then refine it based on that, and then come up with a plan that would eventually be at a point where it could go through the adoption process as well. It has to be adopted by the Planning Commission and the Council too. And so we're thinking that might be a good process. Still have the idea that there would be a citizens committee that would kind of help with that process, but it would be a much shorter process than the UGB steering committee process, kind of shorter and more intensive. That's one thought, is to, that group is already up to speed and has all the background, and they'd be ready to hit the ground. Maybe it's a smaller version of that group, subset of that group, or something of that nature, I think is a good idea. So, but that's kind of the general plan for that. The code audit hasn't really hit the ground running yet. It's been, we have a consultant on board. The way that this project works is it's a grant from DLCD through the state, the Department of Land Conservation and Development, and they we don't have to hire a contractor for that. They do the contract. They have a set of preferred contractors that they work with and trust, and they've connected us with a group called 3J Consulting, as well as a sub that Elizabeth Decker Consulting Services. And I think her focus of her consulting business is actually doing these code audits. So my understanding is that they're still trying to work out the contracting with that's got to go through the DOJ and make sure it's all copacetic, but that's actually okay because we're all really busy with these other things going on, but hoping that it'll start moving into action in the fall, kind of the late summer, fall, and that'll be a really interesting process with a lot of work that you guys will be involved in. So rest up. That's why we try to take it easy on you here in the early winter. So because we knew it was going to be more intensive coming through. So Northwest Park Master Plan, I wanted to hand these out and have maybe Matt give you a little update on that process.
Sure. Matthew Martin, Principal Planner, City of Sisters. We are nearing the end of a year-long effort to develop a master plan for City of Sisters' newest park, identified as Northwest Park. Some of you may have participated along the way through our public engagement process. So this park is located at the west roundabout on Highway 20 at the intersection of Barclay Drive. We're going to City Council next Wednesday, April 8th, for final approval of the master plan report. The report is not the approval of design and detail, but rather the concept and the layout in general and the general aspects of the improvements. There will be a subsequent land use review process when and if the project is funded and we get the go-ahead from City Council. But through the master planning process, one of our primary goals was to explore the feasibility of a ice skating pavilion, hockey ice rink, or different variations of that. Ultimately, the council decided against the inclusion of any ice skating facilities at this location, citing costs and just site constraints, I think, are the two primary factors, noting that if you want to have an ice skating facility, perhaps you find a better or more suitable location and do it right. successfully explored that feasibility and concluded not at this location. So what else was supported and should and could be included? So the primary and most supported aspects of the master plan are the bouldering features and the nature playscape. So those are the prominent features that receive support all the way through from our stakeholder interviews, through a public engagement process, open houses, as well as city council. And so what you're seeing here is kind of the full build out of a preferred concept that does include that naturescape and bouldering area, some smaller interpretive nature trails, a permanent plumbed bathroom. That was something that had different variations that were in relation to a potential ice skating rink. We did look at temporary outhouse, porta potty type of facility, but it became clear that no, if we're going to have a quality park, let's include flushable toilets. Yeah, with handholds, I'm trying to give you an example there. The one that throughout this process that everybody kept pointing back to was Alpenglow Park at City of Bend. But these are artificial features that have handholds for different experience and skill levels. So any bouldering that you're not getting to any extended height, so you don't need rappelling and ropes and other support equipment. I think that's a big aspect of it too. So lower in height, but different features and different handholds. But all in the consultant and landscape architect that we've been working with in V5, they're looking to, and in the report, is to be inspired by our natural mountains. So it's not going to look like the mountains, but have a kind of an aesthetic, but perhaps more of a modern type, because the bouldering features are flat features and geometric in their shape, but I would expect it to have that inspiration of our local geographic features. So it's this kind of artificial rock climbing, I think, is a different way to put it. In the center there, kind of council was very supportive of a phased approach here, both in the available funding now and then perhaps in the future. And the phase two, first, phase one would include the bouldering playscape, the trails, and a reduced parking footprint, noting that phase one wouldn't have the same demand as a full build out of the park. So that first phase would have a smaller parking area and not the pad and stripe for the basketball or other court play. And that would be left as an open space, natural features over there. But having it available for future expansion as desired.
First basketball, city-owned basketball court.
It may be.
What's that?
Maybe in Pine Meadow Village.
That's still a private facility.
Right.
Public access, but private facility.
Court over there. Did you ask?
But city owned.
Oh, city
Yeah.
owned.
The question is metal or
Nets.
Metal's kind of annoying, isn't it? Which is better than no net, which is
The no net's the last resort.
So there are a couple in the vicinity of the playscape and the bouldering. Another element of was the consideration of incorporating a covered picnic area adjacent to and in conjunction with the bathroom. So similar to what was improved and added to the community center park. No off-leash area identified for this park in the master plan. But noting it as you think about actual design features and the specs on the any goals and things like that, we haven't gotten down to that level of detail. That will come at the actual final plan development and scoping of the improvement. So more to come on that level of detail. But I think it's certainly been a successful process to have a master plan in place. We've done a full funding analysis at phase one with a reduced footprint of the parking and no court. It comes in just over $1 million for that. Then you incorporate phase two, we're getting closer to 1.5, 1.8, depending on the level of improvement and certainly the timing of construction. The property came to be as part of the Woodlands development, and the city purchased it after the development was platted.
Yeah, you'd have to do a multi-story, I suppose.
Certainly, accessibility was an emphasis, not only so nature trail, the pathways on site, of course, parking that we're all familiar with, but emphasizing access to the playscape and other features, so that a portion of that, because a design aesthetic with the playscape has been the incorporation of something like a fire tower to reflect on kind of that history and an experience that we have here. So it was emphasized that have a accessible component, if it's multi-tiered, that at least a portion of it, that all can enjoy those features.
I've been a frequent bug in the ear with Sisters Parks to say, like, if there's any opportunity for more open gyms, like, I'm happy to supervise. I will take 2 hours on a Sunday if it's an issue with personnel and, background check or whatever you need. So, like, the more basketball courts we can put, the better, because my kid's just like, well, we're just going to walk around, and I'm like, well, why don't you take a basketball and shoot hoops? Like, you'll kill an hour before you know it.
That's great.
And I'm sure the coaches at the high school are like, they want to build up the program. They're constantly talking about that, and there's a lot of lack of interest because I think kids just don't get a lot of exposure to it. So that's my 2 cents.
And this may be the west, city-owned or otherwise owned. This may be the westernmost available court that could.
That's where I live, so selfishly I am pointing towards.
Well, it's equitable service and accessibility, not from a.
Your side of the highway, we live on opposite sides of the highway, but our kids play basketball, definitely.
Oh, yeah, heck yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Centrally located.
But again, we've developed the report and refined it over conversations here in the last month or so, but going to City Council next week for their final look and approval of the conceptual master plan, and then we'll look to Council's direction on moving forward with next steps on if it's final design, entitlement through the land use review process, and then ultimately their funding of the improvements, which can come from system development charges that we've been collecting for years, specific to park development, and then other resources such as a regular grant that's available through Oregon State Parks is another target for funding opportunities. Any questions? Great. Thank you.
Killing a little bit more time here.
You don't have to.
I feel like you guys want to make it worth your while to come over here. Just a few more updates and we'll get you out of here. So I'm working on some building activity reports, and this was kind of driven by one of the counselors coming to us saying, "Hey, I'm getting asked by my constituents what's going on, like what this dirt turning over in this lot, what's going on there." And they don't always know what's going on. And I imagine you guys probably have that come up too, sometimes with your friends, or get asked that question. So we're gonna start putting together quarterly activity reports that'll give you an idea of the building permits that have been issued for projects, and where and what it is, so that if you do get asked, or just to keep you aware, things that you guys don't have hearings on, or you don't get copied from Sarah, or the rest of us on type 2 applications?
That's my favorite part of your website, though.
Really? Good. Great.
The thing I would say is that sometimes it's not clear what it is. Land claim is claim.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's good to know we have an audience.
Yeah.
They're never there. They're never there. That's the problem. I love that too. But obviously, the box is there. The box is there, but they're empty. That's a whole
On a,
I know. Every time I try to log into my.
on a serious note, if certainly if those are empty, here can be our eyes and ears out there, 'cause especially if they're empty, it means it's getting attention. So it'd be valuable to refill. Yeah.
That's a great idea. I have this with me when I'm running my site. Zap it real quick and when I get home. Great idea. Right to my favorite page. Well, we're kind of, you're right, go to your favorite page. And we are in, we're not riding horses anymore, so. I'm just saying, we're spelling things differently.
No, great suggestion.
Yeah, Sarah's just going to give you an update on current building permit activity. Just
Okay.
what we're seeing generally.
The last quarter, I'm very loud now, we issued 17 new dwellings. Looking at the remodel of what I think was called the West Coast Lodge, is now called the Stranger, down on the west end of town. 155 Lundgren Mill, so I think it's North Sisters Business Park area. Physical therapy gym for Sisters Physical Therapy, and a wine bar / retail for wine in that building. There's a few more tenants still to come in that one. And then the Crosscut Warming Hut restaurant / bar over on Canopy. Right next to the park that Matt was just talking about.
Over on where? I'm sorry.
It's on Canopy.
It's in the Woodlands development.
Yeah.
Just along Barclay there.
Okay.
So,
How does 17 new builds compare to?
It's a great question. I don't have that answer for you, but I can get it if you're interested. I also like data. I like code updates and I like data. So if you want to see it, I'll go get it. And not a problem.
It seems slow to us for that wasn't. We didn't get involved, but there's a lot of building going on.
I've noticed that it's quite variable, and especially we've had the larger developments with the Woodlands and Sunset Meadows that as that production builder, they come in batches. So you may have a heavy, submittal and even issuance period, and then the next month have very few because they're working on that batch of units. But you could averages you could glean something from it, but it ends up like, oh, where's this activity? Because you're seeing it out there. Where are the numbers? So we'll have really quiet months and then some surges.
I've noticed some things have been built, not occupied for quite a while, right next to Sisters Coffee. There's apartments above, and there's shop or retail space down below. One space might take coffee.
Right.
Yeah, the roastery. No, the roastery, sorry.
We got one business in there now, but yeah, this is four spaces.
Across the street.
Across the street.
Yeah, the blue.
And then just finally, I'll take one of those and pass it around, is the city council goals are going forward for adoption next week. And so thought I'd just share those with you. And a handful of them are things that, more than a handful, are related to work that we do and specifically the Planning Commission. So take a look at that. And I won't go into, given the time, I won't go into as much detail as I thought I was going to with those. We sufficiently filled up the time with staff comments. I think that's all for us.
Okay. I guess we're adjourned.
There's commissioner comments, I think, that you need to.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, Commissioner. Yes.
I have a question. You know, over there, across from Town Branch,
Bull Creek?
yeah, across from Bull Creek,
Sunset.
Sunset Meadows?
Sunset Meadows.
Sunset Meadows, yeah. You know, I know part of the fire mitigation for us when we put fences, attached houses, the fence, cedar fences, this is new building, we've adopted this, and this new construction, and they're attaching cedar fences to those houses.
So that only applies to those are defensible space standards that are applying for the development going forward. They were approved.
Right. You would think they wouldn't want to do that anyway. Right? I mean, yeah. Why create a fire hazard?
I have landscape bushes, I keep it in there, and the fence is right in the front. Nice flammable,
Oh, yeah. Cedar's like putting kindling out.
We're happy to report, though, that the building hardening standards have gone into effect as of yesterday. So that's a huge milestone for our community.
Need to backdate them a couple years.
Yeah, can we do that?
Any commissioner comments? Great. All right. Thank you, guys. Good to see you.
Thanks.